with them. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So nice.
Welcome.
Now we all open our waters.
Yes.
Everyone's got water.
God, we're so loud.
And I know she should be allowed to start, but I just want to say briefly that all. And I just want to say, because it's a compliment to her, I'm not like Kanye.
I'm gonna let you
just
finish.
No, Kanye me.
Which is that you've played such an important role in the life of this show because you wrote one of the most thoughtful and important pieces about the diversity issue the first season that really forced us and me to grow and stretch as writers. So I've always really thought about you as one of the girls, Jenna.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
But anyway, it's a real honor for us to be here with you.
I feel the same. You wrote, this was a full circle moment, and I agree. And, well, you responded so kindly to that. We'll get to that in a moment in the questions, but I felt there was a real testament to what you all were trying to do with the show and what you were trying to do with the show, that you wrote me a really nice email, and you were just like, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you all for coming. There was a line outside. It was very exciting. So
Wow.
this makes me happy.
We're not selling any shoes. I'm sorry. These are the only lines I see in New York anymore, other than protests, are like people waiting for a shoe that I obviously don't know about.
A sneaker.
Or like a
Or a
Supreme
cronut
sale
or
that I
a
don't know
magnolia cupcake.
about. Yeah, or the
Those ones make me
cronut.
really angry.
Yeah.
Those lines. It's a cupcake.
Tell them.
Anyway,
Sorry,
we have a problem where we talk to each other and exclude whoever's with us, but we can't do that to Jenna because we worship
She's
her.
a queen to us.
No. Well, this is a good place to start, though, because I was, browsing through all y'all's Instagrams early this week, except for Jemima's because it's private. And
It's a great browse, though.
which is very
fucking
cool.
filthy. So.
Yeah.
Which is a very badass
for
move.
children.
Yeah.
Not filthy.
No, but it was kind of dope. I was like Googling, and I was like, I had to go down to like a website that was like, is Jemima Kirke's Instagram private? And I clicked, and it was like, yes. And I was like, oh, okay. But you guys have been posting really beautiful tributes to the show and each other, and you've been appearing in each other's Instagrams, and so you wrapped the show some 20 weeks ago, according to Instagram, it seemed like. You were posting those images. I want to just check in. How are you guys feeling? How does it feel to be saying goodbye to
I
something?
am drunk.
Yeah.
So it's been good. It's been fun. 20 weeks, you said? That's a lot.
Yeah. Ish.
I can't do that math, and until I have children, I don't think I'll be able to do that math.
Yeah.
God, I cry less regularly about it. That last week was so heartbreaking. And when these two wrapped, because you guys wrapped, like what,
6 weeks before we did.
Yeah.
There's, for various reasons, the season dragged on, and I'm not gonna not blame my ovaries. But
We won't drag them into it.
It's a real love-hate with your ovaries.
yeah, but we shot for longer than we thought we would, and so these two girls wrapped 6 weeks before we did, and every one of those goodbyes, and the goodbyes to the gentlemen on the show, who we also love, were extremely emotional and intense. And then I think the interesting thing is, then you have post-production, then we have this time doing press together, and I think realizing that this is sort of our last forced interaction has brought up a new
I know.
wave of emotion.
Now it's on us to hang out, which means that we'll see
It'll
you
never
at the
happen.
next one.
We have some good text chains, though.
That's
the
true.
current one is real sassy.
I started a sassy text chain with the cast, including the boys, and it's fresh.
I gotta say, Eben is ruling.
Eben is bringing it down.
Eben, who plays Desi, is really the
Eben
one
is
who's keeping the
Desi.
text chain alive. Yeah.
I love that. Lots of memes in there and things. Cool. I want to play a clip from the, I'm not getting the signal that we are having tech difficulties. So yes, John, can you roll the first clip, please? I want to take a look back at the earliest days of the show so we can see how far you guys have come.
Whoa.
And I think we have a monitor here in case.
Papa? I think that's Hannah.
You should just call me Papa.
Hi.
Oh, hey, what the heck are you doing here?
I thought you didn't want to see us anymore.
I couldn't bear the idea of not seeing you before you left town. But more importantly, here, you can sit down. It's late. I'm sorry. Is that I brought you my book. I need you to read it. Jesus, it's hot.
Great.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Are you boiling?
Great. We'll read it on the plane.
No, now. I need you to read it now. Because I don't want to freak you out, but I think that I may be the voice of my generation. Or at least a voice of a generation. Well, just read. Don't be scared. Just enjoy it, because there's going to be plenty for us to talk about after. Just go for it.
So I wanted to play that because I wanted to get you guys to weigh in on, I mean, how does it feel to look back on that time now? Like, how do you feel looking back into the past in that way?
It already feels dated.
Yeah.
Actually, it does. I'm like, that is so long. It's like looks like Seinfeld. It's amazing.
I mean, on a totally superficial level, I remember thinking, because we were shooting the pilot and I'd never had like, I'd made movies before, but I'd never had like hair and makeup people on set, and I would look in the mirror every day and be like, I could not be more beautiful. Like, I thought my hair looked amazing. Like, that was the moment where it was really cool. People were starting to kind of like do that casual dry bar, like barrel roll with a curling iron, and I was like, I look spectacular. And now I look at that, I'm like, what a scrubkin. But what's so interesting about that scene is like that it'll probably be that line will probably like end up on my gravestone or in my obituary in some way, and I'm not blaming anyone but myself, although Jenny Connor did write it. But the thing that's interesting about looking at that scene is how much that line has become this subject of debate and at times derision relating to the show. And the thing I always have to remind people is like, my character said it when she was on drugs and it was a joke, and she was very clearly not trying to position herself. It wasn't me being like, I'm here, I'm queer, get used to it. It was a real,
It happens with a lot of lines that you say, though. And that, I think, was the one that started it, was everyone goes, she thinks she's a voice for a generation? Like they forgot they were watching a TV show?
Yeah, so I
or like a story.
When I was still looking at Twitter, I'd get all these things that are like, you're not the voice of my generation. I'd be like, I didn't say I was.
But if I may, I think you are. I think you
really
are,
nice to
and
hear.
I'm very comfortable with that. You, as my voice, are much funnier and more interesting. I will happily let you be my voice, and I am terrified for the time when you are no longer writing the words that I say.
Thank you, Al. That means a lot. That means a lot. But some people in our generation voted for Trump, so who even knows?
Hashtag facts.
Hashtag fact. Hashtag not an alternative fact.
Yeah. I'm also curious if you could look back, if your 2017 selves could look back at your 2011 or 2012 selves and be like, you're about, like, buckle up, babies. Like, what advice would you give yourself back then?
Oh, man.
Well, without giving away a lot about my personal life, it's very hard to say.
I know you can use birth control.
Yeah.
No, we love her kids.
No, I totally would have told myself. I would have probably said to maybe drop the pride a little bit, because I came into the show very, defensive about what I do for a career and what I'm going to do for a career. And I realized that actually only ended up hindering what more I could do, and actually ended up hurting myself, because now I look back on some of those scenes and they're fine to me, but but I'm like, I could have been a little more creative with that one, a little more imaginative, just because I felt for so long that I was doing what I was told, so I would just say to chill the fuck out.
I think that probably applies across the board.
In general.
Yeah.
Well, it also, I think this is a bit cliche, but that we were experiencing what was happening, and what was happening at such breakneck speed. And I know that we all felt so proud and committed to what we were creating, but I don't think any of us expected that the show would become what it was. And so I think that, at least personally, there was an aspect of enjoyment that I kind of missed out on, because we were working so hard and then promoting so hard, and then also just being like, what?
And also defending ourselves all the time. I feel like I also would have said to us, put us in a circle and been like, people are going to be really critical of this. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. Some of the reasons are going to be so valid, and we're going to learn from the people who we have dialogues with. Some of the people are going to be rabid hate monsters living in their mother's basements. And like, it's not our job to please all of those people. And that's a lesson every woman in her 20s has to learn. And I think I talk to so many women whose greatest struggle is boundaries and learning to put their own selfhood first in order to, which ironically makes you better at being there for other people. And so I think if I could have sat us down and been like, we're good girls. We're doing our best and we really try, and we're not, crashing cars drunk or thinking we deserve special treatment or showing up to set behaving like monsters. Like, we've got this, and we're solid people, and we don't need to work quite so hard to prove to everybody that we're okay, because we're okay.
Yeah. I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
We're
I agree.
very boringly well behaved.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest disappointments is that none of us had trysts with our co-stars.
Although they tried to make up. What was that, like the second season where like Star did a bunch, they tried to
create a feud between Zosia and me that my boyfriend was hanging out on set too much and it was annoying her and she felt it was unprofessional. Like, it was truly a fabricated story, but we came to work and we were like, heard about our feud in Star?
It was real fun to talk about.
It's flattering.
I'm gonna choose to reveal this here on the stage for the very first time. I did make out with a day player actor on our show first season. I was not yet in a relationship.
Do I know
No.
I know.
What?
Wait, who was it? I'm not going to tell who it was. I'm just going to say that, like, we thought nobody did anything, but before
I do know. I do know. I know
who it is. I know who it is.
Before we understood the full boundaries of professionalism, I was like, you've been on set for 8 hours. You seem interested in me and my power. I would love to go to the 11th Street Bar with you. And then I threw up on the way to work the whole next day, and I was like, this phase is over. I think I will commit to the same person for the rest of my life.
for one day.
Yeah, but it happened. And then I kind of got there and I was like, oh God, this person doesn't even think I'm cute. He's just like, she runs a TV show and I'm an actor. I was like, this is a nightmare. Oh. I've inadvertently become like the grossest male producer in Hollywood. But it was just a mere kiss.
What was the question?
So tame. Well, this leads into the next thing. I mean, I guess I'm interested too in hearing, looking back and even now, like, what was it like with all that pressure, all that scrutiny? I mean, there were tons of pieces written about the show, mine included. It's been a pleasure to go back and rewatch the show and sort of see it through 5 to 6 years of wisdom in life and eyes, and look back at what you were trying to do and what you accomplished. But what was it like being that young and being in that thrust in that spotlight and feeling scrutiny that isn't applied to a show like, I don't know, any other show with all men,
Silicon Valley's not getting it from behind the way but at the same time, I mean, I love Silicon Valley, but it's funny, it's like, and it's an HBO show and I adore it, but it's interesting that it is interesting that you can have a kind of similar format, which is, 4 men representative of a generation, of a industry. I mean, and there's a sense that
they're actors.
They're actors and we're just ladies.
Yeah, but like somehow our characters and the writing and who we are gets enmeshed with us as real people. The writing becomes what our beliefs, rather than a story that's being told.
Or characters that are saying lines.
Well, it's interesting. Allison said this thing the other day, which really hit me hard, and then she said it again in this oral history did for the Hollywood Reporter, where she was like, she did guy does a sex scene and it's brave and it's bold and it's whatever it is, and then she did the sex scene that she did at the beginning of season 4.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Which was like a big, beautiful. I mean,
It was the one with me bent over a counter.
Yeah, she was bent over a counter and something was happening to a part of her body, and literally every headline was like, Allison Williams gets her ass eaten.
Yeah,
it was.
But Allison Williams gets her ass eaten, not
Marnie.
This is what happened in
but
the story.
That's clickbait. Like, I get it, but also I don't know. I'm not convinced that anyone would have written the article. It was like, Bryan Cranston makes meth. Right?
I agree. And it was crazy. I mean, I think we were always working is the thing. So it's like, we shot the first season. By the time all of the reaction to the first season came out, we were already shooting our second season. By the time we had gotten awards, we were deep into our third season. We always had the work to return to. And the 4 of us, plus Jenny and Judd, we were always very blessedly on the same page about it and believed in what we were doing and became this huddle, and we became this team that was really committed to continuing. But there were definitely moments where I think we kind of collectively looked at each other and just went like, you know, you can't help it, even if you're a thoughtful, engaged person who appreciates constructive criticism, you can't help sometimes just be like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got, I mean, no one really said any shit about me, so I'm really hoping, I would love to feel
They're
accepted.
coming at you hard this season.
Please. But no, reading these people's criticisms and scathing comments about the show, you know, hit me personally because, you know, Lena's one of my best friends, and it's a hard thing to read and be like, shit, how's she handling this? And then you call and Lena's, you know, I'm fine, and you know, you are, but it
I remember
sucks.
one time you called me and you were like, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing, I'm fine. And you're like, then why haven't you left your house in like 13 days? And I was like, amazing point. Yeah. You were like, way to never, like how much Postmates have you ordered? A lot, like that kind of.
No, I know, it's pretty, and you feel helpless. And I actually, that was a day where I could not get you to come out of the house and come and do something with me to get your mind off of things. So I got a Twitter account that day. And I was like, I'm gonna stick up for her. And of course I'm like, a selfie.
If you really want to enjoy yourself, you can find Jemima not understanding Twitter and tweeting at herself. It's one of her big things that she does.
I respond to the comments, but they end up responding to me.
Yeah.
It's the best. Her Twitter really is a work of art. And you did get a Twitter account, and then Jack was like, Jemima's on Twitter like defending you against all of these accusations from like 3 or 4 years ago. She's having a crazy day.
I really was very emotional about it. I had to be on the phone with like PR for like a good 30 minutes.
About how to make it or telling you to
To
stop?
get the tick,
Yeah.
the verification.
Yeah, she was.
Much coveted blue check. Yeah.
You have to understand, she's like she's basically like Miss Havisham. We dragged her here. She's like so confused. Like she has a landline. It's so confused by what's happening here.
So perfect. I'm interested in hearing how or whether you did internalize it or how you didn't internalize it and kept making the show and the thing that you wanted to make. Did you feel you had to respond? And if you did you overcorrect or undercorrect? Like, how do you feel about how that input affected the show, if it did at all, because of the production schedule?
I think Jenny has said this before, and it's very true that we, and I think not to a fault, like not that we weren't aware of what was coming at us and like your piece, trying to take things that were actually constructive into account and to really speak to what was happening in the world. But we really made our show in very much of a bubble, and I think that you know, you and Jenny and Judd did an amazing job of protecting us, and we all kind of just put our heads down when we were creating and tried to make the best show possible without letting that you know, interfere and sort of attack our bubble. Because if we had, we wouldn't have been making a good show or a solid show, and we wouldn't have been making a show that riled feathers in the way that it did every season, that you know, kind of created those comments.
Well, I remember being specifically worried, and this is a testament to your all of their confidence and sort of conviction as artists. I mean, some of the criticism, you take it in and you know it's essential. Like your piece and some of the really thoughtful pieces that came out around it really educated me as someone who was 23 years old and creating a TV show about how essential representation is. And I think I was so excited to be getting women who even acted or looked like my friends on television that I didn't have the life experience or the political knowledge, and I wasn't yet galvanized to think about representation on a larger scale. I just thought about what I hadn't seen, who I hadn't seen, the ways that I had felt unseen as a young person, particularly as a woman with a non-Hollywood body, a woman who's mentally ill, a woman who'd survived sexual assault, and all of those things felt like a tiny revolution to be able to get them on television. And then once I understood what representation meant to me, I was able to understand what it meant to other people, and then to try to think about why certain systems had benefited me and not benefited Like, why did it take Issa Rae, who's been working for as long as I've had, 6 years longer than me, to get a television show on the air? And we're so fucking lucky to have her show. But the fact is like, I don't think that's about talent. I think that's about, and I think HBO is an incredibly progressive network, but I just think, and they're incredible, and they support my voice, and they support Issa's voice, and they care about diversity, but there are incredible hurdles that women who don't look like us have to go through to get their voices heard. And that was a lesson that came purely from engaging with criticism. And in that way, it's the best thing we ever could have done, and the best lesson I could have learned. And that's why Jenny and I have started Lenny Letter and our production company, is because we understand that we may not be the voices for those people, but we now have a certain kind of privilege and access and a foot in the door that will allow us to lift those people up with us, and for us to shut the fuck up sometimes and just let them talk, which clearly we're amazing at. But what scared me was, I thought, the criticisms of my body, the criticisms of of the bodily autonomy that the characters had, the criticisms that I didn't necessarily look the way you were supposed to look to be naked and having sex on television. I was scared twofold. I was scared these girls would see it and suddenly feel unsafe and go, oh my God, I don't want to be exposed to that, so maybe I don't want to do this sex scene, or I don't want to do this vulnerable moment, because there's guys who are waiting in their houses to attack me and everything that I stand for. And the other thing that really scared me is I didn't want teenagers to see it. Like, there are like little girls who watch the show. I mean, little girls don't watch the show, let's hope, but there are teenage girls who watch the show and who are powerfully engaged on social media, who have to look at all this bullshit on my timeline, and how do they internalize that? And if I ever delete a comment, it's not because I'm like, that hurt my feelings too much. It's because I'm like, I don't want some, teenager in Spokane to open her computer and see somebody talking about a body that looks like hers or is thinner than hers, as if it's an aberration on this planet.
And is that what drives you to keep, pushing forward no matter what? Because, I went back and watched a ton of the episodes, and I was struck by the humor. I was struck by the way you use your body, and everyone uses their body as art. I mean, it just starts to feel like an elaborate piece of performance art in all these ways, and it's just so, I was like laughing. I had a very different reaction rewatching all the past episodes now than I did at the time, which was with this like critic's eye and like scrutiny, and it was intense, but I remember that feeling. And I think if the show had come out now, I think it would be received very differently. I mean, with the same amount of credit, but I think TV just looks a lot different in 2017 than it does in 2012.
Well, it's interesting. I remember when we first started, and I've said this before, like Jemima had just had a baby, and 6 weeks before, and she came to set, and we were trying to find a costume that she felt good in because she was still nursing, and she was like, how funny is it that I'm 6 weeks out from having a baby, and I'm like playing the hot girl on the show?
That was cool. I do remember
I'm
that.
like 60 pounds
and I
heavier.
felt some pressure as well, because I didn't have a waist back. I didn't have, my tits were huge in a way that I wasn't comfortable.
Everyone hates that.
Yeah.
I had whatever. For me, it was like, I was like,
I
okay,
remember
I'm
you
gonna
were
have to.
like, my body's not my own right now, but it was.
But I've always been really excited about the opportunity to be naked on the show, or to be sexual in sort of any context, or not sexual, but just objectify my body. And I know that's a sort of unsafe word to use, but it really is how I feel, that like we only objectify one kind of body type, and that's one thing. And people always say, well, how do you feel about all the different type, that all these different types of bodies are represented on the show? I'm like, they're not that many types. We got medium. We got a lot of medium. Yeah. We're just coming at it from a little bit more creative angle, which is like, we see that's sexy too. It's just been a little, TV and media has been very sort of unimaginative with what's sexy, and also with nudity in general. Nudity's only been in sex scenes or sexual things, which is why I loved so much that scene of Lena playing ping pong topless, which made so many people so angry. And I was like, why? Because it's not a sex scene. Why aren't people allowed to be naked in stories?
Someone sent me a screen cap. The worst thing ever was that someone sent me a screen cap of it playing in England and then a news banner that just said Nelson Mandela has died under it. And I was like, I am so sorry to the legacy of this remarkable man. But I do still have it in my phone, and sometimes I look at it and just go like, fucking life.
Yeah.
The other thing about and I'm so sorry your boobs killed Nelson Mandela. Is that what we're meant to take away? The other thing about the nudity is that I got, because I'm never nude, not to the point of wearing jorts in the shower for the Arrested Development fans out there, but I never got fully naked on the show, and I used to get comments that are like, when are you gonna show your tits? Like, constantly.
I used to get comments that, will you ask Allison Williams to show her
They were
tits?
all Jemima.
And why do I have to look at you? I want to see Allison Williams' tits. And I'd always be like, firstly, do you think I haven't tried?
Yeah, she has.
And
Many
secondly,
times.
I'm not her keeper. She'll show her tits when she feels like it, which is, she promised me that she'd do it when she's 60.
I did, and I will keep my word.
By the way, the only reason I was bringing up, I just want to clarify that objectification thing, is Lena said I was the hot girl, and that I'd had to take a readjustment to be like, oh yeah, I am the hot girl, even though I'm, like 40 pounds over what I'm comfortable with. That's Lena sees me as like the sex object, and I'm really happy to take that on in this episode. For me.
Yeah.
I just wasn't comfortable with me because I didn't see what she saw, because she's actually, well, yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about the particular type of humor in the show. And we have another clip, hopefully not too many clips, but John, clip number 2, please. His name is John. He's
Thanks,
very
John.
nice.
We love John. Thank you,
Yeah,
John.
he's very nice.
Principal Toby, I think I've told you that my father's gay, yes?
Oh, yeah.
So he just called me from a Midtown hotel room sobbing, and that leads me to believe that something pretty invasive has happened to his body. So I feel like I've got to get there kind of on the quick.
Yeah, okay. I like you. I really like you. And I think you...
I like you too. You're one of the smartest people I've ever met, and so gentle and so kind, and I feel like we work really well together. So just, have Shayna check in on my class, and I'll be back ASAP.
I got so scared because for a second I thought it was going to be me.
Oh.
Your vagina.
They wouldn't give me that. They wouldn't give me that one.
Yeah, it's a lot of vagina.
Oh my
It's
God.
a lot of vagina
We
for
all,
the time.
In the dark just now, we were all looking at
each other like, that's
is
so
everyone
big.
in this room about to see that
I know.
together?
Such a big screen.
I know. That vagina's made for the small screen, for sure.
No, they hyped it up.
Tina, don't downplay it. Thank you, baby.
Yeah. We are going to talk about vagina in a moment, though, because I did read an interview where you were like, I'm never going to show my pussy. And then I was like watching the new season, and I was like,
She got over
Spoiler,
that. Yeah.
but yeah.
I showed a bunch.
Yeah.
I was like, at first, I think it was honestly the part of me that's like, was a teenager who was like, you're going to tell me not to? Well, I'm going to double down. Like, it was like, so when people started responding, I didn't think, firstly, I think two things. One is I didn't think people were going to respond to my nudity the way that they did. And so when the people were enraged, I just wanted to go harder. And the only place to go harder was with my pussy.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was I realized that I had a lot of internalized shame about my vagina. I felt like I felt like boobs, there's something sort of almost inanimate about them. Butts, it's like you can draw it like this. It's just a basic, simple icon. You could make an emoji out of it. But there was something about just like my...
That's your boobs, by the way. Your boobs are drawable. Like,
Yeah,
your
that's
boobs
true.
are the most polite, like... So that's how you... That's you.
They're polite.
Yes.
I'm glad you think
Brilliant.
so.
They're polite.
Yeah.
I'm glad you think so. This is a great time to let you know that Jemima's sister used to call her gorilla tits for a nickname.
They just so... It was horrible. It was really horrible.
And everyone knows you, that's not who you are.
I know, everyone's seen my tits, and I did that with that in mind. I was like, I'm gonna get you for all.
But I think I had a lot of shame around that part of my body as someone who's chronically ill, as somebody who has endometriosis, as somebody who considers it like a flawed or broken part of my body, as a sexual assault survivor, and just as a woman because of the fact that like we live in a country where that part of our body is under constant attack. And not to be too hippied out, but like the reason I think that so many women are experiencing such a, I mean, please, I'm not a scientist, but we live in a world where so many women are experiencing endometriosis, PCOS, autoimmune disorders. Our bodies are fucking eating themselves alive because we are being told every single day that they don't deserve to be here. And so suddenly I was like, it is my duty to show my vagina, and I will do it.
And it's the most joyful moment. It's such a joyful. Everyone will see it tomorrow, but it's such a joyful. I don't want to ruin it, but I was like, I giggled and rewound it and then sent a Snapchat to my girlfriend of it. I was like, this is great.
I'm so
very
happy you
exciting.
liked it. I had fun, and I had fun showing it in season 5 too, because there was this hot guy that worked on our set. He knows who he is, and this is not sexual harassment, what I'm doing right now. And I was very polite about it, but at one point I heard somebody be like, can you go get another light? And I realized they needed a second light to get my vagina in proper silhouette. And I was like, I'm the boss, and an attractive man is going to get a second light to shine on my vagina.
Yes.
This is the life I wanted.
Yeah. Bravo. Bravo.
Thank you for your support, Jenna.
But what I love about that clip is when I rewatched, I was kind of picking and choosing and skipping back around. I remember there's this thing that you're making fun of, but also not, and there's this way that you're looking at this sort of treacherous march towards adulthood and how, as the show progresses, we all know you get to adulthood and the book is still not written, you still don't have the answers, you don't know how to be, and there's a very delicate act that you're doing and using the characters to make fun of their self-involvement, but also help them grow through it. And I'm just curious to hear you all talk about that brand of humor, which I think, it's not that people missed it, but it definitely belongs in the same category as a show like Veep or a show like Curb Your Enthusiasm, which I don't think people really, well, I didn't get the first round. I won't speak for the world, but.
Well, I think part of it has to do with the point that was being made earlier, which is a lot of it didn't get attributed, or the credit wasn't given to the writers. A lot of people thought we were genuinely that privileged seeming and unself-aware and just didn't understand that there is a line between the words we say on the show and the people we're pretending to be and the people we are in real life. And had there been more appreciation for that, which there might have been if we were male actors, then I think the jokes would have gotten more credit because people would have been able to say, oh, these self-aware people are making jokes pretending to be unself-aware people. And since so much of the humor reflects the very navel-gazy culture that this show is coming out of, I think that was a crucial thing for people to latch onto, and only a select few people who could really see through the performance of it, and maybe as they got to know us as individuals, started to realize that when someone says, I may be the voice of a generation, that Lena wasn't proclaiming that. That was Hannah Horvath high in her parents' hotel room, shoving a tiny book, I guess, in their hands and declaring that about herself.
Well, that is the humor, though, of the show, is about being about revealing the sort of flaws of yourself, right? And that's our humor in everyday life, to sort of make a joke with a high-pitched voice and be like, I took a selfie. That's me genuinely telling you I did. I did take a selfie. And I know what that sounds like, and I know all these sort of negative connotations that has, and sort of how delusional that is. But it's funny.
And if you say it in a funny voice like that, then
no one will think I actually did it.
Yeah. And I think also something like what I remember before the show came out, Judd was saying this is a real commentary on millennial privilege and middle class white female privilege, which is something that we should sure as fuck know we need to examine now that 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump. That's a conversation that needs to be had. And so, but it was an interesting thing because, again, we've gotten so many things and so many gifts from the show, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm, kicking anyone out of bed for eating crackers, but at the same time, it's we were never, ever really given the benefit of the doubt, besides from a select few people, that we knew what we were doing and that our show was a commentary. Right. People were just almost looked at it like we were thought we were fun, wild white girls run amok.
It was a tragic documentary reality series about.
It was basically people talked about it like it was The Hills, and we were we have a staff of extremely experienced writers here telling you stories and crafting them every week. And if I had someone ask me earlier, do you have any regrets? And I was sometimes I feel the artistry of these amazing people I worked with, whether it was cinematographers or actors or writers, was lost in the noise of sort of like in like the think piecey noise around the show. And when every week we were trying to make a movie, and a movie that really talked about something real.
Yeah, it did become so enmeshed with this sort of cultural movement that it, paralleled. But that, I think it got lost as a piece of artwork for everyone involved.
I think a lot of it got lost as well, though, because it was so subtle. Like we weren't making a commentary, but we weren't pulling any punches. And it is a comedy, but it's also incredibly dark because it's so honest, and it's incredibly dark because it's so honest, and it's speaking to a generation who's experiencing the things that we're shining a really harsh light upon.
Well, people don't like the word honest when we use it because they think we're meaning honest about everybody.
Yeah, no,
which
we're
is
just
not
Right.
true. It's honest from this perspective. It's honest from
Exactly.
this is what I want to say, and I'm gonna try and say it.
And it's interesting, it's like, we got a lot of criticism first season for like the idea of nepotism. Like we all have parents who are in creative industries or who have success of a certain kind, but it's like I was telling a story, like Jemima and I have been best friends since I was 11 and she was 12. We grew up together. It's like an accident, basically, that I didn't meet Zosia and Allison.
Oh, yeah.
Like they could have appeared in my life at any time. They just happened to
But
appear
also,
in
you
Object
thought her
Life.
name was Zosia Mamet.
Yeah, I did. I had literally no clue. And I also grew up in a house where we only watched PBS News, so I had no fucking clue who your dad was. And
You thought my dad was Peter Jennings for a long time.
A long time. And then he showed up. I thought, like, I was like, Brian Williams, but I saw Peter Jennings, and then he showed up on set, and I was like, I recognize that guy. And then all these PAs started to, like, weep because they were so excited to see him. And I was like, oh, he seems like kind of a big deal. And at Allison's wedding, my favorite was that Jemima he was giving a toast, and Jemima was like, he's an incredible speaker. He's so talented.
He really was. I was very. I was
His
like,
job.
Yeah.
I've never really,
I got that sense.
But one more
yeah, the
thing
nepotism
about the humor, which, because to get back to your actual question, which we seem to have so much trouble doing, is something we were always really careful of, and Judd and Jenny and our writers is like, we really don't like jokes that are mean. Like, it's like, we like jokes that are self-referential and kind of...
and character revealing.
And character revealing, but like, we don't like to be like bitchy for the sake of bitchy. Like there are shows that do that really well. Like I love Difficult People, which basically makes it its job to just like lampoon every aspect of popular culture and like take no prisoners. But like that's not who we are. Like we actually wanted to make a show that was like kind of like hard on its characters but gentle to the world.
Yeah.
That is so good. I'm gonna reframe and make it my own.
In a few minutes, we're going to take questions from the audience and then questions from the internet, but they'll be filtered. But before that, and because there's one of my favorite scenes I also want to show, but I want to hear from you guys if you have like your most memorable moments on set or scenes or even your least favorite. Like what
Ever?
Yeah, or just whatever comes into your mind.
I'm sorry, I should not have started with the and I'm gonna take
Dove
that
right
back.
in.
No, Kate, would you please stop me? Stop me.
Okay,
Stop her before she kills again.
One of my most favorite and also kind of least favorite was the breakup scene between me and Alex, because Zosia was genuinely so sad that Shoshana and Ray were breaking up that I cried that day, like not on camera. But it was also sort of one of the first times I felt like Shoshana was having a truly tragic moment. And it was the first time that Alex and I had really gotten to like go toe to toe. And since then, we've gotten to work together quite a bit, and I adore him dearly as an actor and a human. But I think it was one of the first times on the show where I felt a level drop down, and since then we've just continued to go like straight to the center of the earth. But it was a day that I was so grateful for my job, and I had been up until that moment, but to be able to span a spectrum of playing something so ridiculous, like a scene on a couch with Hannah talking about my dead grandmother and like eating pudding in a like, what is that thing called?
Snuggie.
A Snuggie.
I still have that Snuggie.
It's a great Snuggie. And then having a day like that where we filmed this very real, very honest, very upsetting breakup scene. It just made me feel truly grateful and excited to have that be my workplace and to be telling a story that was that, I don't know, brave and real, for lack of a better word.
You ready yet, Jemima?
I'm ready. I was
Okay,
thinking the whole time about my own. No, but I was going to say that my favorite, to this day, my favorite scene was working with you that first day with the pink jumpsuit and in our apartment, and I was like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with this person. She's so good. And you really, we were doing a lot more improv in the beginning in that first season.
We improved so much that day.
Oh my God,
I was
I
so
just got
nervous.
I mean, it was one of my first times. It was I don't know if it was my very first day on Girls, but
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, and Judd and you were just like, just change the line every time. And I was like, oh my God, like it was so fun. I got to use every joke that I think is hilarious and just like make you guys hear it. It was great.
You were great, and you really did fall in love with us. You were like, she's really good, and I was like, yeah, because unlike us, she's a professional actor.
One of the most fun times I've ever had on set, aside from, we only were together 12 times as a foursome throughout the whole series, which was sad to me every day we weren't all together. But even though I know it wasn't realistic, etc. But one of the most fun times I had, aside from all those times, was shooting Marnie's music video for What I Am, it was one of the most creatively fulfilling and satisfying experiences I have ever had, because I got to get out of my system everything about other amateur music videos that's always bothered me, things I'm embarrassed about my own amateur music videos. Like, there's a full-length cut of it somewhere, and it is excruciating. I've never watched all of it. It's too hard.
You like aggressively like smoke a vape.
E-cig.
It's hard for
early
me. Like, I
e-cig,
can't-
like
Yeah,
early
early.
generation e-cig. That was like one of the most fun. And then, I mean, one of the most challenging was the return of Chris Abbott and navigating the very strange meta narrative that we were experiencing, which is that Allison, hadn't seen Chris since he left the show, and Marnie and Charlie also hadn't seen each other since they broke up. And so that was a very kind of confusing thing, but there we were in a rehearsal space at Silver Cup with you, and it was like nothing had changed. And so that was hard, but it was really rewarding, and very quickly was fun, and he has not become a raging drug addict with Humble Life tattooed on his stomach. Yeah.
Well, I'm very curious to hear what yours is, and it's hard. I mean, every day that I showed up at work and got to watch these girls work, it's such a cliche, but it was just always a joy to watch them go. Like, I always loved directing. Sort of just like the most mundane moments between them. I really enjoyed the night. I really enjoyed when Jemima and Allison made out first season.
Oh God, I loved that.
I loved that.
But they were
We
like
were
both,
so giggly.
They were
I
so
was?
giggly, and I
We
was like,
both were.
are they gonna like go home and fuck? Like, they were really.
It's like, honestly, it's like my greatest regret in life is that I didn't aggressively pursue a relationship with Jemima.
It was so fun. I was like, is she gonna use tongue? Is she not?
I know,
Like,
and I remember afterwards you were like, what kind of kisser do you think Allison's gonna be? And I was like, I don't know, grow up. And then afterwards you were like, she used a little bit of tongue. It was really nice. Like,
But
were
you got
way
so mad at me
weirder.
because I'm an obsessive gum chewer and you hate mint. As
Oh,
a
yeah.
I hate any
Random.
freshener of any kind. I'd rather anything.
Remember, like a 3-day-old coffee breath.
Better than the lie of the mint. Yeah. Can't.
you guys were definitely way more nervous than you were, or like up in arms about it than you were like kissing any male
I was
co-star.
so excited.
It was great.
Well, I do love this clip, but it was of the clips that your company sent me, HBO sent me. But
Okay,
I
got
do
it.
love this clip. This is one of my favorite clips.
Thank you.
And this is the last clip we'll show. So John, can you?
Thanks,
The
John.
last-
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
You really don't get it, do you?
No, I really don't.
Hannah is my dearest friend. She will always come first. We may not be talking right now. And I hope to God that that changes. So you saying that she's not in our lives anymore doesn't work for me. You know, people hate me. I'm a hateable kind of person. I don't know why, I can't help it. Maybe it's because I have a big ass and good hair, but I know that I have principles. And one thing I don't do is steal people's boyfriends. But you ruin that.
Thank God.
John.
Oh.
Oh,
I
yeah.
will never forgive you.
Jessa, come back here.
That was great work. And Jenny Connor directed. That was the first episode she ever directed, and we were like, oh, turns out you're really good at this.
That was my most fun. I mean, you too. It was the tail end. So the first, and that was really fun to do. That we had to rehearse that like days before. It was, I'm like, my friends were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to work, I have to rehearse my stunts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Truly. So.
I think what I like about that scene is it's not clear through the arc of the show what's going to happen to the girls of girls. Like, do they end up friends, or they decide the friendships they go separate ways? And I think there's a moment where you realize how deep it cuts. But you know, the friendship cuts, and like how the love, and like this is, there's something deeper that's happening. And I guess this is a way of asking, I mean, well, I was gonna say, what happens to girls on girls, but I guess we'll watch and see. But what do you want the legacy to be, or what do you think the show's legacy is going to be?
Well, it's interesting. I've been saying a lot, like, I hope that it helps people think about women as messy and complicated and containing multitudes, and that it's okay for women to be unsure and impolite. But you know, watching that clip, it reminds me that one of the big goals when we started the show was also to really talk about female friendship in a really honest way, because so many films we see either depicted as this sort of like, you know, ride or die supportive perfection or catty infighting. And the truth about female friendship, I think we all know, is like it's a very deep love that lies somewhere between those things. And something that's so interesting is we've all become really close, but also like to write that stuff between Jessa and Hannah is interesting because Jemima and I do have a 20-year friendship that's had all of the complexities that two total lunatics being friends would encounter. Mm-hmm. And I remember that monologue. I had written that monologue and Jemima read it and had a bunch of notes, as she's wont to do, and we went into my dressing room and she dictated to me what she felt like she would say. And I wrote it down by hand and then added back some of my stuff, and it was like interesting to be collaborating on that monologue about friendship.
Mm-hmm. It was, that actually watching it back, I'm like, that is pretty, actually, like interesting, the writing on that, not what I wrote, I mean just this, the idea of what Jess was going through at that point of she wanting so badly to have these two things in her life. She wants to be with the man that she feels she needs at the moment, and she wants her friends, and she feels she can't have both, but she's so proud, that she won't even go out and try for it. That scene for me was a lot about pride. It was funny because she was like crying and about something that she could change, but she wouldn't change it just because I don't know why. I think she felt that was a lot of self-hate there. Like she just felt inherently evil. Sorry, like it's done. I can't. And now I don't have friends.
But that's like at the end of the day, like who can blame her? Any one of the characters would have dated Adam. He's hot.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm just so relieved and was
very
every
serious.
season that Marnie didn't fuck Adam.
No, you are not.
I was, because she slept with your ex-boyfriend.
She was sleeping with everyone.
And she slept with your ex-boyfriend.
You don't like to be picked up like you weigh 2 pounds?
I mean, no, that would be great.
We finally,
up and, like,
I feel like
spun
now
around
that the
like a
show's ended, we've finally come out of the closet about how hot, like before we were always like, yeah, he's cool to work with, whatever. And now we're like, finally really coming out of the closet about like, yes, we hung out with a beautiful specimen of a man every day for 6 years. And yes, we feel good about it.
I think in terms of the legacy too, I'm encouraged to see that the aspirational as a mode in television is becoming less and less interesting to people, or even perhaps useful to people. It's nice to have escapism. It's nice to see a closet that you would dream of or something like that. But it's also really comforting and comfortable to see shreds of people who represent pieces of yourself, who feel familiar. And I think it can be very isolating when there's such a massive amount of content in the world if none of it felt like it applied to any part of your personality. But when you are working on a show like this, it's almost aggressively grounded and real, and tried to portray to the best of our ability what the actual existence of these 4 women would be. I think that is something that we continue to hear provides great comfort. Yeah. And I think it's important right now. And I think a lot of the shows that I love the most that are on the air now, that are coming out and have come out over the last couple of years, reflect that aesthetically and also thematically, which is a huge compliment. And you know, I think a debt of gratitude is owed to Lena for some of those shows.
Definitely.
They're really nice. They're always nice to me. They're never mean to me. It's really nice.
And you don't even write for us anymore, so now we're just nice to you.
So crazy. I'm really lucky, because a lot of times by the time people have been on this show this long, they really don't like each other anymore. So I feel
Miracle. It also happened sort of straight out the gate, which is pretty exceptional as well.
and now you'll never get away from us either.
Yeah, that's true. You're in.